My name's Jackson. I'm the business agent for Teamsters Local 320. Helped to put this event together, and glad to see some familiar faces and some new faces as well. Goal today is to just educate people on what's happening in dining, and we've got representatives here from a bunch of groups on campus. So happy to see that. We'll just pass around the room if you just want to introduce yourself.
Yep, I'm Mike Johnson. Been there for 25 years. I'm a steward and I work at Pioneer Dining Hall as a cook.
I'm James Dixon. I've been here 7 years now. I'm right here at Bailey Hall. I'm a cook.
My name is Zara Brown, and I was working here for about a year and a half.
Hi everyone, my name is Amy Stager. I work at the Labor Education Service at the Carlson School of Management, and I write for our news website, Workday Magazine.
Hi, I'm David Unfold. I'm the Financial Secretary for UE Local 1105, the graduate labor union. And I also work on this campus, so I've had the pleasure of getting to know some of the folks in the dining services here.
My name is Christina. I work at Comstock, and I've been here 9 years. First, I started at Pioneer.
Ed Reynoso, I'm the Political Legislative Affairs Director for Teamsters Local 320, and I've been here 43 years.
Gun pops. I'm Regent Mary Turner. This is wrapping up my second year. My first year I remember signing a petition for you all, so I'm surprised these people are still here. But anyway, we'll take care of them. Anyway, Mary Turner.
Hello everyone, my name is Pedro Ramos and I'm an organizer with Rock, Minnesota.
My name is Jocelyn Stern, and I'm here on behalf of the undergraduate student program.
I'm Vicki Knudsen. I've been a food service worker on campus for the last 20 years, and now I work at Middlebrook.
My name is Brian Barnett. I've been working here for 8 years. It's 17 dining hall food service worker.
I'm Nick Kelly. I'm a retired Teamster. I worked in food service for 21, 22 years, something like that. I think I was the one that gave you that petition somewhere.
It was in the 17th. Yeah.
I'm Shelly Stein. I'm also with Rock, Minnesota, and if you aren't familiar with us, we're an organizing outfit that organizes food service workers outside of the U in restaurants, venues, bars, and have been the folks that did a lot of the leadership development of all the new union organizing in the service industry outside of here in the Twin Cities for the last couple of years. So First Avenue, Kim's Restaurants, Cafe Sorrels, all those folks are people that came through our organization. So we're proud to be standing with you all and thinking about ways that we can support your struggle.
Hello everyone, my name is Alba Escobar, and I'm an organizer with Rock, Minnesota.
Everyone, I'm Maggie Tron. I'm also an organizer at Rock and a new member of Local 17 with my other job as a bartender for First Avenue.
I'm Ruth Shaw, a faculty member in the Department of Ecology, Evolution, and Behavior. I'm happy to be here with you and concerned about your struggle, but happy to support you in your work.
I'm Deandre Delmar, cook at Pioneer Dining Hall. This is the end of my third year.
Sam Tavere, I'm also a cook at Pioneer Dining Hall and also a steward, going on 3 years as well.
I'm April Barfnick. I work at Kaufman. I've been here for 16 years as a cook.
I'm Rose Brewer. I'm faculty in the Department of African American and African Studies.
My name is Wesson Mohadeo, also a faculty member in the Department of African American Studies.
Hi, this is Yuich. I'm also faculty in the Department of African American and African Studies, but also Asian American Studies. Thanks.
I'm Chris. I'm a senior B&G over here at Bailey, and I've been here for about 10 years.
I'm Christy O'Connor, 26-year Teamster at the U. I work in health sciences as a senior B&G, supporting my fellow 320 members.
I'm Rick Wallenberg. I'm a steward. I've been here for 16 years as a food service worker, and I work right in this building.
And lastly, Eric, who's filming today, Eric used to be a dishwasher in Pioneer as well. All right, so I think we'll get started. I also want to say we do have some people on Zoom. You can't see them up here, but Regents Robin Goley and James Farnsworth are on Zoom right now.
Come hi.
Mary says hi, Robin and James. And Heather from the American Association of University Professors is also on the Zoom. So we have some people joining virtually as well. All right. So before we jump in, I do want to give some background on our union, Teamsters Local 320. Specifically our union at the university. We've been the union here for maybe 50 years. I think we were organized in the 1970s. So we're one of the oldest unions on campus, if not the oldest. And the people we represent at the university are 1,400 people across 4 of the campuses. And that includes food service workers, which we'll talk about today, but also building ground staff, mechanics, gardeners, research animal attendants, waste drivers, pretty much the people that make this campus move on a day-to-day basis. I'm the business agent for the unit, but everybody else here today is a union steward or active member. So clearly, there's a problem here in dining that we're here to discuss. I think though, before we get into the specifics of what's happening today, it's important for everybody to understand the background of how we got to this point with a private management company on campus and our dining services. So I'm going to kind of walk through the timeline because it will help us inform the conversation later today. The U of M is in a very unique situation. So the management of our dining is outsourced, privatized. So a private company does all the supervision of the dining services on campus. But that being said, all the Teamsters you see here today, they are in fact public employees. So they're employees of the University of Minnesota. So it's sort of a strange situation where we have private company managing public employees. It's a very, very unusual situation across the country. It's usually the case where either everything is public or everything is private. So here at the U of M, we have a mix. And this has been the case since the 1990s. Prior to the 90s, the university was what's called in-house or self-operated, meaning that the university ran the whole thing. There was no private company involved. This isn't specific to the Twin Cities campus. The Morris and Crookston campuses also have private management. However, the Duluth campus is entirely self-operated. So there is one part of the university system that is still entirely publicly run, and that is the Duluth campus. So the company we're here to talk about today is Chartwells. We'll get into more details about how they operate, but prior to Chartwells, Aramark was the previous management company, and Aramark had been here since 1998. That's when food service on this campus, the management was first outsourced and privatized. Beginning in the late 2010s, the student body here on the Twin Cities campus did start to organize. It was the student government actually who made a big push to get rid of Aramark. And a lot of the concerns, based on what I've heard, were around food quality, trying to get more locally sourced options. And ultimately, the university did pivot away from Aramark. They ended that contract. But rather than go down another option that was probably more sustainable, they decided to sign a contract with one of Aramark's direct competitors, which is Chartwells. And for those who don't know, Chartwells is a subsidiary of a much larger company called Compass Group. And people might be familiar with Compass Group. They're huge. They're based out of the United Kingdom, but they run food service operations around the world. They're one of the largest companies that does that type of work. So Chartwells is just one small part of a much bigger food service empire that Compass Group operates. So before we get into the issues of the past couple of years, I think it's useful to go back to 2022, which is when Chartwells first came onto this campus. And I think it's safe to say that immediately we had some issues. It was a bumpy start. They took over in April of 2022, and coincidentally, that was also a year where we were negotiating a labor contract with the university. And to deal with poor staff retention and the possibility of a strike that year, Blue Crew basically immediately made the decision that they wanted to flood our dining halls with temps. And what they ended up doing was using these apps, they're gig temp apps where you can sign up to work a shift and then within an hour you can report to work. Very limited background check, if any. The two apps that they used were InstaWork and Blue Crew, and they've since stopped using those apps, but at the time, I mean, the people here could attest that kitchens were crawling with people who would just show up one day, never show up again. You know, we had temps stealing stuff, walking around the dorms, just kind of crazy. On top of that, they took an extra, step, and they used a program called Chefs on the Fly to actually fly in chefs from around the country to work in the dining halls on a more permanent basis. So we had people coming in from Texas, Florida, all over, and they were actually paid to stay at a hotel right next to campus. So in addition to the sort of day-to-day temp work, we had these very cavalier, cocky chefs coming in from Texas and just kind of running ransack over the operation. And this was very, very clearly because they feared a strike. I think that was a big motivation why they were doing that. We did fight, and we did end up settling for a pretty decent contract, fought against these anti-union tactics, and we successfully won a $20 an hour minimum wage, so we raised the floor about $4 or $5. We were also able to get some good summer work language in our contract, which we'll touch on later today, but that was certainly a success for our union. Just to kind of emphasize how bad this got, we actually ran a story at the time. An investigative reporter took a temp job in one of the dining halls and wrote a story about his experience. He actually worked directly with Mike's wife, Tammy. But this is a picture of Max. So there's.
Is that Max from the Reformer?
Yes.
Okay.
I think he was, what was he doing?
Working at the baker, baking cookies.
Baking cookies.
I'm trying cookies.
There's also this pretty infamous article from the time. Chartwells that ended up serving Lunchables at one point for the students.
Actually, they weren't serving the Lunchables. They ended up there from their, we had like a little store. And we used to put them, if we had leftovers from there, we'd put them out on the salad bar line. Well, because that's what they would have me do. I wasn't there. That happened 10 minutes after I left, and they put them on their front line to give away.
So, yeah, I mean, clearly.
I thought it was really funny because everybody goes, "Did you see?" And it's like, okay.
It certainly wasn't popular with the parents or the students.
Nope, which was good.
And, as an example, we were not going to tolerate this behavior. So some of the things we did was we blew up the rat, took it around campus, and we actually also brought it to the hotel where the Chefs on the Fly scabs were staying.
Yep. Good old scabby.
So, we really made it clear to them that these were intolerable tactics, and I think we did put the fear of God in them for at least a little bit. That being said, since we settled that contract, things have taken a turn for the worse. And I think that's what we're here to talk about today. So since 2022, the working conditions in the dining halls have continued to deteriorate. Chartwells has created a hostile work environment and manages the university workforce through discipline and fear. And we'll get into some examples of what that looks like. Specifically, we have some data that we're going to share with you today on, what discipline has looked like, certain types of people who are being targeted. I'll give you some examples of harassment from some of our people testifying today, talk about lack of job stability, and also kind of the privatization of our work that's happening. So I think the first place to start is just looking at discipline trends generally. So when we talk about discipline, these are actual write-ups of employees, so verbal warnings, written warnings, suspensions, terminations. And what we see is that since Chartwells took over in 2022, there's just been an explosive increase in discipline in the department. So obviously 2022, there's only 4 disciplines total. But starting in 2023, we see a huge uptick to 58. And then this last year, we're up to 100 disciplines total issued calendar year 2024. I think it's safe to say this year, the trend just continues to go upwards. This represents about a 96% increase over this period of time. And you know, when we talk about disciplines, there's a various scale of discipline, and the more severe suspensions, terminations have also been going up. So in 2022, there were 0 people who were suspended, terminated from the department, but we see that number's been going up to 14 in 2023, and 16 this last calendar year. I mean, just to give you perspective, this is a department of about 225 people. So these are large numbers, and especially people from the union world will recognize this as being just a pretty astronomical increase. I think the other piece of this too is who is actually getting disciplined. This is very important. And perhaps not surprisingly, the data shows that workers from marginalized communities are targeted for discipline at a higher rate than their peers. So the data shows that women and workers of color are disciplined at a higher rate. If we want to get into specific numbers, you know, we find that women are suspended and terminated at a rate 11.8% higher than their share of the workforce. Women of color disciplined at a rate 5% higher. And then black employees in university dining consisted of 63% of all the suspensions, terminations since Chartwells took over, which is about 15% higher than their share of the workforce. So not only are we seeing disciplines go up generally, we're seeing that specific categories of workers are being targeted. And I think at this point we can say with confidence that Chartwells is engaged in discriminatory conduct. The numbers don't lie, and you know, yeah, this is what it is. I think if we want to kind of zoom in on some micro levels of examples of discipline, well, we see a lot of our disciplines for what we call petty violations, things that a manager probably could have addressed in the moment or just had a conversation with the worker, but instead they decide to write them up for it. Mike likes to use the term disciplining people out the door, because that is what is happening. So, you know, I'll just give you some, these are real examples from the past few years. There was an employee who was terminated because her son came to work visiting her and ate a piece of pizza. And the employer terminated her and accused her of theft, that she didn't pay for her son's piece of pizza that she didn't notice. There was an employee in this building actually who was written up because she got locked out of her apartment and slept outside in the student lounge here. And her boss came to her the next day and gave her a warning, said, you're not allowed to be in the building after hours. I think you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. But, you know, it's messed up. The employee in this room actually was disciplined for using sick leave due to complications from surgery. That was a fairly recent situation we dealt with. And just to kind of emphasize how petty this can get, I've actually represented a worker who was disciplined for throwing away a plastic glove in a compost bin. So, you know, I mean, really any little thing that they can write somebody up for, they will. Yeah, it's out of control, and we see it across the board. So that's just actual discipline that we're talking about. I think we can also talk about just harassment that happens on a day-to-day basis. So Chartwells managers have been pretty consistent in exhibiting pretty terrible behavior toward Teamster workers. You know, these are the types of things that I get calls about on a daily basis, but managers yelling and screaming at workers, and that includes in front of students. There's been situations of that happening in the dining halls. Verbal abuse, including bullying, threats, people threatening to have their job taken away from them, belittling, intimidation, it's all fairly commonplace. We had a manager at Byron's location who threw something at a wall close to an employee. Nothing happened to him. I think Mary knows about that one. And then physical assault. We've actually had instances of employees being touched, physically assaulted. It's totally unacceptable. So. There's also a real lack of job stability. One thing that we've really fought for over the years is getting options for our workforce throughout the entire calendar year. Because this is an academic institution, the students obviously go away for the summer, and the university's contention has always been that they don't have the work for dining Teamsters in the summer, so they lay them off. In 2022, as I mentioned earlier, we negotiated pretty good language around summer work, so giving actual options for people to work over the summer. But what we found is that the university has just actively undermined that language each year of the contract, and we've actually lost summer positions. So the first year after the contract was negotiated, we had 120 positions offered. We're down to 75 this year. So the point I want to make here is that this is already, the standards for this job are already decreasing. And when you tell somebody that they're not going to have work for 3 months out of the year, why would you even stick around? I mean, if I'm going to get yelled at on a day-to-day basis, threatened with termination, and I don't have that job security, I mean, that's a real problem from a retention standpoint. And I think the last piece to emphasize is privatization. So this company has made it clear that their goal is to, number one, get rid of our union, but number two, they want to get rid of public employment and dining here and just privatize the whole thing. And they're already doing it. There's certain pockets of our workforce that are being privatized. An example would be the Kaufman Memorial Union Food Court. That used to be entirely staffed by Teamsters, but now there's 2 locations, the hummus and sushi locations there, that they brought in an outside company to manage, and just entirely, there's no Teamsters working there, period. Catering in the Twin Cities has been mostly privatized. That happened when Chartwells took over. And then the entire Rochester campus is entirely Chartwells employees. So they opened a new food court there a couple years ago, but Teamsters have not been given any positions in that food court, and it's entirely run by Chartwells employees. So you can sort of see a creeping attempt to take over the food service operation. That brings us to the motive. So I think it's safe to say that Chartwells has effectively declared war on our union. Any opportunity they get, they're getting rid of people. And we do believe it's their goal to just drive down the standards to the point where people just don't want to work here anymore. And that includes longtime people who have been here 10, 20 years. It's already something that I'm starting to hear from employees who have that seniority is, you know, they don't know if they even want to stick around at this point because of the abuse that they're dealing with. And, you know, the more people that they can force out, the easier it becomes for them to just privatize and take over the whole thing. I do want to emphasize too, something that we hear from Chartwells and from other people is that this type of behavior is common in the food service industry and that we should just get used to it. And I want to be clear that, you know, just because it's common elsewhere doesn't make it acceptable. And that's part of the reason why we have a union here, and part of the reason why we try to hold the university accountable to its mission and standards, is that we don't want this to be like the rest of the food service industry if we can avoid it. This should be a good job that somebody can work in for years and decades, retire with a pension. So obviously this is a problem that needs to be dealt with across the industry, but that doesn't condone what's happening in our dining halls. The impact on operations has been significant. There's been about a 60% turnover rate in the department, which is a huge uptick from what it was prior to Chartwells. I'm sure we'll hear from some of our testifiers today, but this does have an impact on the student experience as well, the customer experience. Longer lines, worse quality, worse service. Those are all things you can expect when you have a workforce that's treated poorly. And on a final note, I do want to emphasize that The university does know about this. This has not been a secret. This is something that we've been in regular conversation with the relevant departments at the U, including youth services, contract administration, labor relations. We've even shared this data with them that you see here today, and there's been little to no action on it. And you know, we can speculate as to why that is, but at the end of the day, the buck has to stop with the university. They're the ones who maintain this contract with Chartwells, and if they want to, they can go to the company and say, you got to clean up your act. That just simply hasn't happened yet. The university has let Chartwells get away with this for several years now. So I think with that, you know, that gives you some background and sort of my perspective as a union staff. I do want to open it up. We have 3 people here today who have agreed to sort of speak to their experiences, who work in the dining halls. And if we have time, we can maybe even open it up to other Teamsters in the audience. But I would just want people to hear firsthand what's happening from some Teamster workers. So I don't know, Mike, if you want to start.
Yeah. Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, all right. Yep, so just to speak to a few of the things that Jackson talked about. In my 25 years here, things have changed. When I first came here, this was what I considered as growing up as a good job, a job that you came to and that you felt like you would be here, you know, retire from, as Jackson mentioned, with a pension and good benefits and stuff like that. So that's why I stayed here, actually, because that's what I wanted. Throughout the years, and especially in the last few years, things have changed. It's not like that anymore. It's kind of like a place where you just go, it's a paycheck, and it's a very hard paycheck to earn. Not even a big one at this point, but it's very hard. The atmosphere here is just not what it used to be anymore. It's just terrible. A lot of people actually don't want to be here. You come because you have to, but it's just not a good place to work. And I think that's by design, because it doesn't have to be the way that it is, and it was not in the past. Certainly management has a huge thing to do with that, because it hasn't always been that way. It used to kind of be, you know, where we kind of tried to come together and do what we got to do, which my feeling has always been that I'm here for the students. I mean, that's what I believe, so that's what I try to do. I don't even think that's the main goal anymore. Actually, I think it's like way on the back burner, so that bothers me too. It just seems like it's just a money-making thing and not even really doing good at that. So a lot of employees feel the way they're treated is just terrible. The way they're talked to, you know, you're not dealing, and nobody should be treated, you know, looked down on or talked down on, but you're not dealing with a bunch of kids. You're dealing with people who have as the same amount of experience as management of the people who work for this company, or more, actually. Certainly no more about the operation, because a lot of us have been there longer, and that's just swept away. Like, well, who are you to tell me this? Like, well, I actually know more about it than you, and so there's many other people who work here too, but that's something that's not even taken into consideration. I was told by one of the big shots in the company before, well, if we're taking advantage of the information that you guys know, then we're fools. Well, they never took advantage of it, so you can draw the conclusion from that. So that's what it is. I don't know what we can do to change it and just make it a different place, but it's certainly going the other way. People ask me when Chartwells took over, do you think it's going to be any better? And I was like, I don't think so. I think it'll take a couple of years before they even catch up to where the previous company, which was Airmark, was, because Airmark did understand it. The company is a company, but they did understand the business. Almost 3 years later now, Chartwells is going the other way, so we're nowhere near where we used to be. Everything is worse than what it used to be. It's service is worse, which is we're here for the students. Hours operation is worse. The food choices, everything is just worse since they've been there. They say that it's better, but I mean, people who go in there every day on a day-to-day basis or work day, you can tell that things aren't what they used to be. It's getting worse, and they're going in opposite directions. So I don't know how you get to making it better as far as that. So that's what it is.
Thank you.
Yep.
James?
You know,
bear with me. I'm reading this. Hi, I'm James Dixon. I've been working here at Bailey Hall for 7 years. I was here with Airmark when they first took over, and when Chartwell took over, it seems like everything went downhill. The first day Chartwell had took over, I was working with a couple of temps, and my chef at that time said, no, this is not how we do it. So I said, okay, and I stepped back and let her take over. Before she even said anything, she stepped in my face and pushed me and kind of headbutted me towards the grill. And I just looked and was like kind of shocked. And then she just walked away and said, well, you just take care of it. And as she walked away, the two temps said, wow, what's her problem? And I'm like, I don't know, you know. So we kept on going. But they gave me their number and said, if I have to work with a person like that, I don't want to work here. As things went on, Chartwell just kept going straight down here. The old director, he was here, and one day we were just in the kitchen by ourselves, and I was fixing lunch, and he just came up to me, started hitting on me, kicking me, talking about, why is you here? Don't nobody like you, blah, 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 blah. And one of my coworkers came in and seen it, and then he turned around and walked away. My coworker came up to me and said, are you all right? And I said, yeah, don't worry about it. It's no big deal. As things went on last year, as I got off for the summer, I was diagnosed with terminal 4 cancer. I got on FMLA and I sent the paperwork in and everything, and my doctor told me, he said, there's going to be some days that you are not going to want to be able to make it in. Your feet will swell up, you'll be dizzy, lightheaded, and everything. But if you want to go to work, go to work. Chartwell executive knew. They knew. They all knew. Because when they signed off on it, I seen everybody's name who had signed off on this. And now my manager downstairs, she knew, and she just seemed like she would just write me up for petty stuff. This and that, no. Everything was just petty. I came into work, limping and hobbling around, doing the best I can. She turned to all the co-workers that's not a color of me against me. And she also talked about co-workers like me, as Jackson was talking about one of the co-workers who had lost her keys. She had to stay here. Yes, I have seen her several times call us out our names like it's no big deal. Literally. So I kept coming to work and everything, and I was like, okay, now I even had the executive chef, Jason said, my God, your food is good. Came up to me. I didn't want awards from them and Airmark. Awards on my attendance and my food. And it seems like now, after me fighting for my job, I'm still fighting for my life and my job. This should not go on with Chartwell. She's still downstairs. I had to file a grievance against her. I explained to Jackson and Richard about the name calling she has done to people of me. And it's almost every day. And it's like no big deal with Chartwell. We don't care. I even had a manager say, oh, James here, ha, ha, ha. And looked at me, laughed, because he know what I'm going through. Because I seen his name signing off on the piece of paper. This is not right. Chartwell is trying to bust up the union. No, we have to stand union strong. Period.
Amen.
Period. And this is every day with Chartwell. Like said, I come in for the kids. I put out the best food, regardless of sick, dizzy, or not, just so they can have good service. We're Teamster strong. We should always be Teamster strong. And Chartwell need to stop this, because this does not make no sense. Thank you.
So my experience was, the one that was up there was after someone had surgery, they got disciplined. That was me. I had ankle surgery last year, and I actually had to push back my surgery 2 weeks because they couldn't give me enough leave and I didn't qualify for FMLA at that point because I hadn't been here long enough. So I had to push back my surgery 2 more weeks, and I was in so much pain because it was my foot, and yeah. And then when I came back, it took them a month for HR to try to get me in contact with DRC, and then it took them another month. Like, I pretty much immediately got them the doctor's note that they needed with my accommodations, saying that I needed either an anti-fatigue mat or like a stool to be able to sit periodically. And it said that I needed it to the end of December, and they decided that the anti-fatigue mat was a tripping hazard and that there wasn't enough space at Salad Bar for a stool. And so they denied my accommodations and pretty much came up with their own accommodations, which was to be able to sit at greeter for 2 hours, but they still expected me to get all the same amount of stuff done, which I was already struggling with because physical pain. And they also said that I could only have it to the end of November. So pretty much I had it for like 3.5 weeks to a month. And HR came in towards the end of November, gave me a note saying I had to return to work full duty or request FMLA, otherwise I would be terminated. And so I requested FMLA leave, and I actually had to extend that even farther, which sucked because part of it wasn't paid. And then I got a 1-day suspension because I called in because I physically could not walk. I had to use a crutch to get to my bathroom. So I called in because I knew they needed me in on Sunday, because on Sundays, we're super short-staffed. And I got the 1-day suspension, I got 2 write-ups, and then I was just terminated this past Saturday on the 19th. So I've been trying to figure out my benefits and income. I've worked other food service jobs and I have been treated not great, but nowhere near as bad as at Chartwells, and definitely they 100% manage in fear, especially too because they would do the investigation, and then they would wait 2 weeks to give me the actual answers, and when they terminated me, they actually asked if I had anything else to say before they made their final decision, and then I got the termination papers. So I just didn't understand why ask for more information if you've already made the decision to terminate me. I don't know.
It's terrible.
Yeah, it's just been frustrating and insane and very disappointing.
Thank you for testifying. All right, so we are gonna talk briefly at the end here about ways that you all can help, because I hope we can all agree that this is totally intolerable and unacceptable and needs to stop. But before we do that, you just got a lot of information, hearing the testimonies as well. I do want to open it up to our guests here and just ask, do you all have any questions of us, Teamsters in the room, or any comments after hearing what you just heard?
Do we want to get them recorded or no?
It's probably fine.
Okay, cool.
Any question? Thanks everyone for sharing.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say no questions. Just thank you for sharing and really appreciate you talking with us about this.
Thank you, Robin.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, because Chartwells is your boss, but also not your boss, how does a grievance actually get resolved, quote unquote?
Oh, that's a good question.
Most of the time they don't.
So it's a very strange system we have. I'll just speak as the union staff and maybe you can open it up to others, but Chartwells, on paper, these are university employees, right? So you would think that the university would have some involvement in these people getting written up, suspended, terminated. But to be honest with you, our impression is that the U has just washed its hands and is letting Chartwells do whatever it wants. So if a supervisor decides they want to get you out the door, in our experience, they'll go to the Chartwells HR and find a reason for you to get written up and go forward with that. When we do file a grievance to, for example, I filed a grievance to get Zara's job back. When we do file those grievances, they are heard by the university. But frankly, the university, I have not been able to settle a grievance before arbitration, with the exception of maybe 1 or 2 times in the past 3 years. Their attitude is basically, we think you're lying, and we're going to push this to arbitration and force you to sit in front of an arbitrator for this person to get their job back. So the labor relations system here is broken. I mean, we filed hundreds of grievances the past 3 years to address this stuff, but I mean, these folks can attest. I mean, it's the bare minimum we can do, and management doesn't take it seriously because they know the U is going to bail them out at the end of the day. I don't know, is that an accurate assessment?
Pretty much. I think they get to the point, people have been in for a long time. Back in the days when you said something about a grievance, or if a business agent walked in, managers would be terrified. Meg and some other people could testify to that. A grievance, that was something that they just did not want. They wanted no parts of it because they was afraid of just the name, the whole thing. Now it's just like a joke. Even had managers say, well, then just grieve it then, and then just openly violate the contract. A grievance is not supposed to be where you can openly violate the contract. It's supposed to be if you said that you didn't, and that's what's happening now. Well, just grieve it. Then they continue to do what they want to do.
Yeah.
And when you file a grievance against a supervisor, it's even worse.
Yeah.
It took months for mine to get heard, and mine was physical. You could actually see the things. The girl had fingernails. I actually complained about it. Oh, we're working with her. I said, this happened on the first day we went back to our thing. It is now November, and she still has fingernails. Oh, well, we're working with her. I looked at him, I said, then you must not be working hard enough.
They're not. They're really not.
And then, just after spring break, she either quit or got let go, I don't know which, but she is no longer working there. But it took until spring break for something to happen. When it happened in August, and we filed a grievance and nothing happened, she won.
I think the point, emphasize this point too, there have been repeated times where Chartwells management has called law enforcement on me when I walk into a dining hall.
I was there.
It's happened 3 or 4 times at this point, and
yes.
So I mean, not only are they actively undermining the grievance process, they can't even tolerate the business agent walking through a kitchen, which it's messed up. I would hope that they could at least agree on that, but it's gotten to the point where they've actually put instructions to managers that if Jackson's there and he won't go away, you should call the police, so.
But then, but on the other hand, they can sit up and talk about us, call us out our names, jump in our face, and nothing happens to them.
Do Mary?
Well, I don't know why we don't call the cops on when they're kicking and assaulting our university employees, first of all. And then secondly, you know that we can't count on the whole grievance arbitration right now. I mean, NLRB at the federal level is on again, off again, depending on, I don't know if it's up and working right now or not. But because we're kind of feeling the same way as nurses. We've got, I want to go to the next level here. What do we start to do? Do I have to come with you, Jackson, again, every time you want to go? Because I'll work it in somewhere.
Certainly help.
You know what I mean? And I'll wear my little Regent Thomas More outfit and the whole 9 yards. But I'm serious. This is the
kind of region we need, right?
This is intolerable. We've got to stand on the sidewalk and do flyers or what, but I want to see what Teamsters do when they get pissed.
We'll talk.
Because I know what nurses do. What do Teamsters do?
We'll talk
to parents.
There you go. There you go.
But when they mess up, it's no big deal.
It is a big deal.
It's not, no, I have she's downstairs right now, she changed the menu 4 or 5 times because she don't want to let her boss know she forgot to order the product, and it's our fault.
Any other questions, comments, Robin?
Hey, Jackson. Thank you all. Hi.
You want to maybe introduce yourself?
Oh, sure, yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Councilmember Robin Wansley, so I represent the University of Minnesota, specifically the East Bank area, so students, workers, and do a lot of advocacy around labor protections, and that's my background as an organizer as well. One thing I just wanted to get clarification on is Chartwell, are they contracted through the university then? So how long is that contract? Because I would see then, as in council, we oversee contracts. They have a start date and an end date. Is there a way the regents, who ultimately approve those contracts? When is the end date? Is there a way to get them to come before to give a presentation to the regents? Because that's what we do all the time for also suspicious contractors. Come before council, give a presentation, you prove why you're doing a good job, and maybe supplement that with what you're doing today with actual testimonials that says otherwise. But I'm interested, what are the pathways for just ending the contract?
Yeah, oh, that's a good question. So Chartwells, the university's contract with Chartwells was signed in April of 2022. It's a 10-year contract. So the end on paper is 2032.
Yep.
No. I agree. It's been a while since I've taken a look at that contract. There might be exit clause or something like that, but Mike knows. But the bare minimum they do need to be brought in front of the regents, absolutely. And it's not something that's, to my knowledge, it's not something that's happened recently. And as I just mentioned, the U is washing its hands of this whole thing. They are out to lunch. Every relevant department that's in charge of overseeing these people, they are exercising zero accountability. That's university services, contract administration, labor relations. They know exactly what's going on. This data that we got is actually from university services. So, I mean, they know exactly what's happening, and they've just chosen to do nothing. So I agree with your sentiment, and I think, if there's something we can start to do to make that happen, at least start having that conversation about ending the contract, I think that is the right thing to do. It's just, I don't have the details for you today about how we could legally do that, but.
Or, as I mentioned, I think if the regents could even request a presentation that
Yes.
says we want to overview, you said 2022 is when it was signed?
Yes.
Of saying, okay, where are we at 2025? Can you share your work up to date, like a progress update?
Yes.
And it's really about amplifying this. Like, it's great that you have this in a room, but the University of Minnesota is walking into some fiscally precarious times. And you can really leverage this is around how are we being stewards of financial resources? Because even conservative parents can get behind that of like, is this a great way to spend our money right now? If they can bring in cute little robots, I mean, like, they can also talk about why are we working with problematic companies that don't value our workers? And I think this is a way the regents can really help amplify that narrative alongside you.
Oh yeah, and it's certainly not cheap to eat in the dining halls.
No, it's not.
For students especially.
And about summer work, I'll just state on my own behalf, I asked for summer work, I got summer work. They sent me my schedule, did not tell me what my date to start was. I had an email that didn't say what my date to start was. I got a letter that didn't say what my start date was. I saw Amy today, contract administration, and said, hey, Amy, could you figure this out for me? And I said, and I don't think I'm the only one that has this problem. She looked at me and said, I don't think you are either. But you're contract negotiation. You should know these things. You should have already taken care of all of this. This is your job.
Absolutely. We'll take one or two more. We should probably move on, but.
One thing I just want to say is thank y'all for sharing what's happening. I think the shit y'all are describing are things that we see in the restaurant industry every day, and it is really troubling because we often point to the university or other places that have union contracts and say, look, being a cook doesn't have to be a job where you get berated, you get treated the way that y'all are being treated. So I think there's real stake for us in seeing the union contracts that exist be enforced and enforced well. The small question I have is who are they contracting out to? Like, who's catering right now, and who are the folks that are taking the union jobs at Kaufman? Because I think for us, we're networked in food service outside of the U of M, and I think we're interested in knowing who those actors are right now.
Well, April works in Kaufman. Do you want to say who's running stuff in Kaufman Food Court?
It's Chartwell.
It's just Chartwell directly? And catering as well?
So catering is all Chartwell, maybe 4.
It's another subsidiary.
Yeah, okay.
I think he's talking about like the restaurants that's right about outside company.
Right.
Like
There are a couple restaurants in Kaufman. So there's one called Wild Blue Sushi that I think it's just a small company, like a handful of people doing sushi work. We did try to get Teamsters to work there, but their response, what did they say at the grievance hearing? It was world-class education required to work there.
They started training.
They asserted that you had to be trained from when you were a little kid virtually, and but in fact, all you need is a knife to open boxes. This stuff isn't prepared on site, so it was a ridiculous narrative.
And then the hummus place next to the sushi place is run by Hillel, the Jewish organization on campus. So.
What?
What's that?
That's all kinds of fucked up. Just say that one out loud.
I just want to say, like, for this year long, and my data all along, we had 6 fired and 1 forced to retire. Yeah, you are correct. 6 got terminated and 1 got forced to retire. Year still ain't up there. We still got like 2 weeks left.
It's terrible. I keep saying it.
About race and pettiness, when I was talking to a manager about, they were upset that I didn't cool rice properly. They brought up that I had earbuds in November of last year. They said, why can't you just come up to me and talk to me, say, this one thing happened, change it. And I said, he said, well, what would it look like if I was only talking to the black people? And that's like, you know, I'm half black, you perceive me as a white person, and then you're targeting me to be like, oh, we're fair with everybody. I'm talking to you and the other black people, but I just feel like it's a weird thing to say to somebody.
I should say too, it wasn't mentioned, but most of the upper management, like dining directors, I think are almost entirely white, Chartwells. So there's certainly a dynamic there as well. All right, so we have a few minutes left. We already kind of got into this, but there's a question here, you know, how do we fix food service? Clearly there's problems and there are solutions. So short of just ending the contract with Chartwells, we have identified some basic things that the university could start to do to just turn the ship and make this a better place to work. So first being, we have to stop the abuse. This day-to-day workplace harassment, hostile work environments, it has to stop. And I think the first concrete step that the university can take is to just stop writing people up. It's a day-to-day occurrence where somebody gets a warning, suspension, termination, and what we're asking, at least for right now, up until the summer end of the year, is that they just stop doing that. Short of somebody committing a cardinal infraction, there's no reason people should be getting disciplined out the door. That just needs to stop. We also think, given the data that we've collected and some of the testimonies you've heard, it's time for the university to finally do some investigations into what's happening. And that includes some of those departments that directly oversee Chartwells. So university services, contract administration, labor relations. We're demanding that as of today, they immediately start investigating the conduct and what's happening and actually start holding Chartwells to the university standards, because I would hope that the university would believe that what's happening does not comply with the mission and things of that nature. We do have several employees who were terminated, suspended, who have filed grievances, including Zara. And one other demand is that we need to see real action from the university to address what happened with these people. And that includes either reinstatement or financial settlements. You know, we shouldn't have to sit through hours and hours of an arbitration proceeding that might not even go in our favor just for these people to get their jobs back or get what they're owed. So the university, you know, they claim they're in dire fiscal straits, but they have the money to pay these people who were wrongfully terminated and suspended. That's something that they can do. And finally, we are in a contract year, so we've entered negotiations with the university as of last month. Mike's on our negotiating committee, as is Christy in the back. So is Richard. And we've advanced clear demands for contract language that we believe could start to address what's happening in dining, and that includes anti-harassment language. We actually proposed the language that the graduate students want in their contracts. This would strictly prohibit yelling, threats, bullying, intimidation, physical violence, anything of that nature. And if it did happen, the language we proposed would allow the steward to immediately call a meeting with the supervisor to discuss what's happening. Summer work, we're trying to clean up and tune up that summer work language that we negotiated last time and actually make it so that Teamster workers have a year-round job. This shouldn't be a situation where you're only guaranteed to work 7-8 months out of the year. You know, the university has the money to pay people through the summer and offer them work in other departments like facilities, waste, places like that. And then better job posting language, so this would allow Teamsters to actually bid into roles that they want to fill in the dining departments. And right now, Chartwells takes advantage of what's called blanket employees, which basically is a floater position, so you get hired as a blanket. They can move you around to different locations, different hours. So this is part of making the job more stable, as well as addressing just the work environment in general. So that brings us to what can everybody in this room do to help? And we do have some ideas for initial steps that we can take. You know, obviously if people have other ideas, we'd like to hear them, but just some concrete things. You know, we are trying to build a coalition here. I think the people in this room reflect that coalition, but I think the only way at this point where we can effectively hold Chartwells accountable is if we have real allies on the regents, elected officials, but also other labor unions on campus and advocacy organizations like the student government. Because if we approach the regents and the university as a group and tell them that this conduct is unacceptable, I think they're much more likely to start to pay attention to what Chartwells is doing and take some actual steps to end the abuse. With regard to what we're starting to do the past few weeks, so just a couple days ago, we have begun a flyering campaign to start flyering the students. So 2 days ago, we set up shop outside Pioneer Hall, and we handed out close to 1,000, maybe 1,500 flyers to students as they're coming in and out for dinner. Some of those flyers are sitting out at the sign-in table. And we do have plans to expand that elsewhere on campus and go to other dining halls and start to let the student body know what's happening. You know, I will say the minute we started doing that and we put these signs outside of Pioneer, I got a call from one of the HR directors that demanding that we take the signs down. And their claim is that we're lying. They said that what we have on the signs and on our flyers are lies. And our response to that, well, this is your own data, so I don't know what to tell you about that.
They didn't ask me to take it down on my building. I have it on my U-board.
Oh, yeah. But clearly, I mean, clearly the university is going to fight us on this. If we can't even fly our students without getting a phone call, you know, there's clearly opposition within the university bureaucracy to holding Chartwells accountable. So I think the first step that we're asking this coalition to take is we do have a letter drafted to the university president. Should have received a copy at the sign-in table, but we also have a bigger version of the letter sitting over here at the table. And what we would like to do is, starting today, we're going to ask that everybody in this room sign the letter before they leave. It's a good first step to getting this coalition built and sending a message to the university. But in addition to everybody in this room, you know, we know that some of you are here on behalf of bigger organizations. And one thing that we're going to request is that you go back to your elected leaderships or respective leaderships of your organizations and have a conversation about what you heard today. And we are going to be following up with you to ask if your organization is willing to sign on officially to the letter so that we can present it to the university president in at least 2 or 3 weeks. So those are the asks we have for you today. Does that sound good to everybody? Is everybody willing to do that before they leave today? Okay. I do want to open it up. We already heard from Robin a little bit, but just off the top of people's heads, is there anything else that comes to mind, ideas for ways your organization could help? You know, one other thing that I will mention is it's likely that we're heading into a contentious round of bargaining. And historically, we have had to take strike votes and go up to a strike to get the university to do what we want. So in addition to this Chartwell specific campaign, we're also going to have asks in the future for pickets, things of that nature. But yeah, I don't know, do people have other ideas or any other comments for today?
Are there any like prospective student things that we can potentially disrupt or?
Yeah. Okay. Orientation over the summer. You know, historically the university really truly hates it when we go to the student body with our concerns. But I think we all know that that's where the power is in the students. You know, they're the reason we have this university, and if the student body says that this is unacceptable, which I do believe they will, I hope you will, but that, you know, that's gonna have some real power and weight with the university, so. Short answer is yes.
Will we get a meeting with the Board of Regents?
Have you guys gone to the Minnesota Labor Board?
No.
And because there's a place in there for comments and questions, and you can say, I work in a place where I've been verbally, physically, emotionally abused. They don't like to hear that, and they will kind of start the ball rolling in that direction.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And so, you know, maybe everyone go there and write a letter, and the more that they'll have to investigate.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. If you, maybe we can talk after if you have experience with that.
And it was Senator Dietzig, but now what about the representative here in Concord?
Durham Park, Senator Durham Park.
Who's our
Senator Durham Park.
Right, and then the representative is who?
Mohammed.
Signature.
Directed on him.
Yeah, no, I think outreach to electeds, yes. Did you have something?
Yeah. So folks don't know me, I'm Max Bass, I'm the president of ASME 3800, which represents clerical, technical, and healthcare workers here on campus. You'll see a lot of folks with ASME shirts on that walked in late. This is most of our bargaining committee. We were in bargaining today with the university. And what we noticed from their opening proposals to us, and I think you guys noticed as well, is that like their main goal right now is union busting. Every proposal that they brought forward to us was an effort to undermine the power that we're building as unions on this campus. So this kind of thing where we're coming together, we're sharing our stories, we're talking to each other, right? We're building coalitions. This is the stuff that we need more of, and this is the work that we need to be doing. So like we're with you guys, we're hoping that you'll be with us. I mean, Christy spoke at our rally this morning, Jackson spoke at our rally this morning, right? So like this is the kind of like communication that we need to keep open and the solidarity that we need to continue to build. They're looking at stuff like restricting the number of stewards that we can have. Like telling us we can only have one union member there at new employee orientation. Telling us that our president's leave is no longer active, right? Like we have release time for our presidents and our bargaining co-chairs. They're trying to take that away, right? Like real efforts to undermine the power that we're building because they're scared of it. So this is the only stuff that works, right? Like call your electeds, much respect. Like they have some power, but where the power really lies is like the workers here at this university and our ability to shut this place down, right? So like continue this stuff, keep talking to each other.
So you said you had that sign-up table where they got nervous about that one sign. I mean, seriously, the stuff that bothers our employers the most is when we're out there on the sidewalk making a spectacle.
Yep.
So what kind of spectacles do we have in mind here?
Well, I think Scabby might be due for an appearance.
Well, Scabby loves
We like Scabby.
I do think too, you know, as we enter, the tricky thing is gonna be, you know, because we're entering the summer, a lot of dining employees are gonna go home for the next 3-4 months, which doesn't mean we can't do things. But it does make it organizationally a bit more difficult for us in the summer. I do think, and I can promise you that this upcoming fall, we are going to be taking actions. You know, last contract negotiations, we had a huge picket during the move-in as students were moving into their dorms with parents. So things like that, I mean, we're not afraid to do that. It's just a matter of when, and if we're gonna do that too, we have to make sure we have our ducks in a row because, you know, with these bozos in charge, like retaliation is a real thing too. So we have to take that into careful consideration before we put people out in, you know, a position like that. So, but yes, we'd love you to be there with us. So.
Yeah, so I heard you ask, you know, or one of you ask if if you guys could get a meeting with the Board of Regents. The answer is like the Board of Regents has shut itself down to public comment, it's shut itself down to public interaction.
Not my idea, or
Right?
Farnsworth.
No, I know, like Regents in the room aside, right? But like there used to be public comment at almost every meeting. You could write into them and they would actually consider it. Now they don't read their emails. There's one meeting a year where you can get on a docket of like 10 people to speak to the Board of Regents, and it's bullshit, right? Like they're cutting out input from this community and from workers and from students. So the only way, like, I'm sorry, but the only way to like get on the docket at the Board of Regents is to interrupt it. And so like you guys should be talking about, you know, taking actions at the Board of Regents. Like if they're not gonna call Chartwells in for a contract review, which I hope you will, but like if they don't, take this stuff to them, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Can I comment on that and say,
hi Robin.
So I wholeheartedly agree, and I told Jackson this, but I have been trying for almost a year to get unions in front of the workforce committee, which I chair, and they kept sort of pushing it off and acting like they forgot about it, and we're acting like it was sort of unintentional that it kept getting pushed off. And finally I got an email yesterday from the board secretary saying, you'll notice in the next meeting, which is technically our last meeting, that we haven't included any unions on the docket. The leadership team would like to meet with you about your goals before considering this or something. And I was like, wow, so I chair the workforce committee and I can't say, you know, I don't have agency to decide who's going to come in front of the committee. So we are working to get new leadership, but it is, at this moment, it is a struggle. And I apologize that I really wanted you all to come in front of the board.
All right, Robin, why can't we let them know when it is? Because I'm on that meeting too. I don't know why they can't all show up.
They can show up, yeah, definitely. And I think anything if you interrupt the meeting, by all means, carry on. But I don't have the authority apparently to get you on the docket, unfortunately.
I will say, we probably should wrap up shortly here. I advertised at 2:30 end time, but I do want to extend my appreciation to the Regents for showing up who did. I think let's continue to have conversations about the Chartwells contract. I think, you know, it needs to be looked at the very least, the possibilities of pulling them in front of the board and having this conversation. And, you know, on a final note, I do want to thank everybody else for showing up, and truly, you know, what I have seen on a day-to-day basis representing this group is just terrible. You know, one of the worst parts of my week is when I get they have to send us a bi-weekly termination list, and it truly is the worst part of my week. I have to open it up and look at it, and you know, it's just people's lives getting totally upended. So truly, like, something needs to be done. If we don't do anything, Chartwells is going to be running the show in a few years. They've made that clear. Before you leave, we've got that letter up there on the table. I'd ask maybe we can just form a line of people. There's a Sharpie, and if you could just put your name down on the letter, just committing to support the struggle, we'd really appreciate it.
Can I start at the top with
Yes.
Yes.
Mary Turner.
Can I take a picture of you? Oh, yeah.
Thank you all so much. I'm going to sign off. I'm facilitating an organizing institute for 3 days here, so I'm going to get back to it.
Were you able to hear us already?
Yeah, yep. Thank you so much.
Yes, definitely.
All right.
Take this one.
Yeah.
That was a centennial before they were centennial, and then they provided two. Because they provided two in 2019. Wilson was in the kitchen, Wilson worked for Dan Lever. And Seabeard. Remember who the director was, who the managers were? Yeah, I was them.